He was sitting in his living room, television flickering, news anchors speaking in grim tones. On the screen, Americans held hostage in Iraq. 15 of them. Engineers, oil workers, businessmen, ordinary men trapped in an extraordinary crisis. The world believed they were as good as lost. The government had tried, negotiations stalled, pressure failed. Saddam Hussein was using foreign nationals as human shields after invading Kuwait in August 1990. If war erupted, those hostages would likely die first. Most people changed the channel. Muhammad Ali did not. At 48, the former heavyweight champion was long retired. Parkinson's disease had tightened its grip. His hands trembled incessantly. His speech came slow and slurred. Yet something inside him refused stillness. "I have to do something," he told his wife, Lonnie. She recognized that expression, the same defiant resolve he wore when he refused the draft, the same audacious certainty before facing George Foreman in Zaire. When that look appeared, the decision was already made. "I'm going to Iraq," he said, calm, final. "I'm bringing them home." It sounded preposterous. A retired boxer with no diplomatic portfolio, battling a degenerative illness, proposing to negotiate with one of the most feared dictators on earth. Yet he began making calls. Arthur Morse, a businessman with connections in the Arab world, thought the idea bordered on lunacy. But Ali possessed something governments did not: immense reverence across the Muslim world. He had sacrificed his title for his beliefs. He had defied Washington. In the Middle East, he was admired as a man of conviction. The State Department's warning was swift. "Don't go. Saddam is volatile. You could be exploited. You could be detained." Ali listened politely. "I'm going anyway." On November 26, 1990, he boarded a flight to Jordan. From Amman, a grueling 10-hour drive carried him to Baghdad. The journey was punishing for a man whose muscles no longer obeyed him easily, but he endured. Baghdad felt like a city holding its breath. War loomed. Suspicion hung in the air, and into this charged atmosphere walked Muhammad Ali, the most recognizable American on the planet. Enemy, yes, but also Muslim, a man who had once stood against his own government. His request was direct: a meeting with Saddam Hussein to discuss the release of the American hostages. The initial reaction was laughter. Presidents did not meet private citizens on impulse, so Ali altered the strategy. For 5 days he visited mosques, prayed alongside Iraqi citizens, spoke about faith, mercy, brotherhood. He toured hospitals and orphanages. Iraqi television broadcast the images: Ali smiling at children, his hands trembling, yet his presence dignified. Public sentiment shifted subtly. Here was an American who did not arrive with threats, he arrived with respect. Saddam Hussein noticed. Ali's presence became advantageous. If handled properly, it could project magnanimity. The optics were potent. The world's most famous Muslim voluntarily visiting Iraq during a crisis. On the 5th day the call came. The presidential palace awaited. Ali walked through corridors guarded by armed men. The atmosphere was taut, electric. Saddam sat in military attire, cigar in hand, radiating authority. Then something unexpected occurred. Saddam stood. He smiled. The feared autocrat greeted him like an admirer. "Muhammad Ali, the greatest. I have watched your fights." Ali extended his shaking hand. His voice, though softened by illness, remained steady. "I come not as a politician," he told him, "but as a Muslim, as your brother in faith. I come to ask for mercy." For 2 hours they spoke. Ali did not negotiate like a statesman. He appealed like a believer. "Islam teaches compassion," he said. The hostages were not soldiers. They were fathers, husbands, workers. Their children were waiting. He also understood ego. Power desires affirmation. "You have shown strength," told him. "Now show wisdom, show mercy. The world will see that Saddam Hussein is not only powerful but compassionate." Saddam listened carefully, studying the man whose hands could scarcely hold a glass of water, yet who had crossed continents for strangers. "You are brave," Saddam finally said. "Most Americans fear to come here." The meeting ended with uncertainty, but a connection had been made. In the days that followed, Ali continued his visits, interviews, and quiet appeals. Then on December 2, 1990, the announcement arrived. Saddam would release 15 Americans as a gesture of goodwill to Muhammad Ali. The world blinked in disbelief. The State Department, which had urged caution, watched a private citizen accomplish what official channels had not. Analysts debated motives. Critics argued propaganda. Perhaps it was, but 15 men were free. One of them, Paul Vincent, later recalled the moment guards told him they were leaving. "Muhammad Ali secured your release." They thought it was a cruel joke. It wasn't. On the flight home, Ali was exhausted. The mission had taxed his fragile health. He spoke little. The freed hostages asked him why he risked everything. His answer came slowly: "You're human beings. That's all I needed to know." Back in the United States, reactions were mixed. Many praised him as a hero. President George H.W. Bush sent a private note of thanks. Others argue Saddam gained favorable publicity. That too held truth. But 15 families were reunited before Christmas. 15 children embraced their fathers again. Ali did not topple a regime. He did not halt a war. He did not rewrite geopolitics. He saved 15 lives. Sometimes heroism is not theatrical. It is stubborn. It is inconvenient. It is a trembling man boarding a plane because conscience refuses silence.
The most consequential fight of his life was not against Foreman, not against Liston, not even against Parkinson's. It was against indifference. He proved that influence is not confined to governments, that courage is not always loud, that compassion can cross borders even when armies cannot. Muhammad Ali taught the world how to fight in a ring. More importantly, he showed how to fight for people, with faith, with dignity, and with an unwavering belief that every human life deserves to go home.
In the months that followed, war did come. Missiles, bombings, headlines filled with strategy and retaliation. The world shifted into the spectacle of conflict, and the brief story of a boxer walking into Baghdad began to fade from the news cycle. But for 15 families, it never faded. Christmas that year was different, louder, tearful, grateful. Children who had prepared themselves for the worst suddenly found their father standing in the doorway. Wives who had rehearsed strength in solitude no longer needed it. Those reunions did not trend. They did not dominate geopolitical debates. They were quiet miracles. Ali never framed the mission as heroism. He did not boast. He did not monetize the moment. When asked about it, he spoke slowly, sparingly. Parkinson's had already begun silencing the once thunderous voice that rhymed and predicted rounds. Yet the essence of that voice remained intact. He believed in action. Throughout his life, he had been called reckless, defiant, arrogant, sometimes worse. When he refused the draft, many labeled him a traitor. When he reclaimed the heavyweight crown, critics said he was finished. When Parkinson's tightened its grip, some assumed he would retreat into privacy. He never quite did. His body weakened. His resolve did not. The Baghdad mission revealed something deeper than athletic bravery. It revealed moral audacity, a willingness to step into hostile territory, armed not with gloves, but with belief. It also revealed complexity. Yes, Saddam exploited the optics. Yes, only a fraction of hostages were released. Yes, politics is rarely pure. But the calculus of compassion does not wait for perfection. It acts where it can. 15 men walked free because one man refused to accept impossibility. In later interviews, some of the released hostages reflected on the surreal nature of their rescue. They had prepared themselves for months of uncertainty. Some had prepared mentally for death if war erupted. Then suddenly, Muhammad Ali appeared in their narrative, not as a distant icon, but as a tangible advocate. They saw his trembling hands. They heard his labored speech. They understood the physical toll his journey required. That, perhaps, made the gesture even more powerful. He did not travel from a position of strength. He traveled from vulnerability. There is a peculiar gravity in that. As the years progressed, Parkinson's advanced. Ali lit the Olympic torch in 1996 with hands that shook before billions watching worldwide. The image became emblematic, not of decline, but of resilience. The Baghdad mission belonged to that same category. Not dominance, not conquest, conviction. History often measures greatness in trophies, titles, and televised triumphs, yet some victories are measured differently, in hugs at airport terminals, in tears of relief, in children whispering thank you to a man whose body betrayed him, but whose conscience did not. Muhammad Ali once declared himself the greatest. In boxing, he proved it with speed, strategy, and indomitable confidence. In Baghdad, he proved it another way. He showed that greatness can mean boarding a plane when others advise caution. It can mean speaking softly in a palace guarded by rifles. It can mean appealing to faith and humanity instead of force. He did not change the course of the Gulf War. He changed the course of 15 lives. And perhaps that is the most enduring lesson of all. Courage is not always loud. Sometimes it trembles. Heroism is not always celebrated. Sometimes it is debated. But the measure of a life is often found in the moments when someone chooses action over apathy. Muhammad Ali fought many battles, inside arenas, inside courtrooms, inside his own nervous system. Yet one of his most profound victories came without gloves, without a referee, without applause. Just a man, a dictator, and a plea for mercy. 15 men came home. Sometimes that is enough. And yet, the story still doesn't end there. Because what happened after those men came home tells us even more about Muhammad Ali. The cameras eventually left. The headlines moved on. Political analysts debated whether the trip was symbolic or strategic. But Ali? He went back to living quietly with a disease that was slowly taking pieces of him. Parkinson stiffened his movements. His speech grew softer. The once lightning-fast champion who danced around opponents now walked carefully, deliberately. Every step required effort. And still, when people asked him why he went to Iraq, he never framed it as bravery. He said something simple. If I can help somebody, I will. That was it. No speech about legacy, no dramatic defense of his critics, no attempt to rewrite history. Just a belief he had carried since his conversion to Islam, that faith without action is empty. Ali had always lived that way. When he refused to fight in Vietnam, he risked prison and lost his title. When he spoke about race in America, he faced backlash and surveillance. When he returned to the ring after exile, he risked humiliation. He was never afraid of consequences. By 1990, he no longer had titles to protect. He had nothing left to prove inside a ring. But he still felt responsible outside of it. That's what made the Baghdad mission so powerful. It wasn't the boldness of a young heavyweight champion. It was the compassion of a man whose body was failing, but whose conscience was not. Years later, when those hostages told their stories, one detail kept resurfacing. They didn't just remember being freed. They remembered how Ali looked at them. Directly, gently, like their lives mattered. Because to him, they did. Muhammad Ali understood something most powerful people forget. Influence is not just about visibility. It's about responsibility. He could have stayed home. He could have said, "This isn't my problem." He could have protected what little health he had left. Instead, he chose to travel into danger. Not to fight, not to posture, but to appeal to humanity. And in doing so, he reminded the world of something uncomfortable. Strength is not domination. Strength is restraint. Strength is conviction. Strength is walking into a room where you hold no weapons and still refusing to bow to fear. Muhammad Ali's career gave us unforgettable moments. The rumble in the jungle, the thriller in Manila, the roar of crowds chanting his name. But Baghdad gave us something quieter, a trembling hand extended in hope, a voice weakened by illness, still strong enough to ask for mercy, a champion who proved that sometimes the greatest fights are not about defeating someone, but about saving someone. He once said, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." In Iraq, he paid his rent in full, not with punches, with presence, not with power, with purpose. And that may be the clearest definition of greatness we will ever see.